They did what they weren't willing to do with anybody in their recent history. They finally did it with Kyle Tucker. And now the fact that you're seeing the rewards of it, it's right to be able to look back and say, well, then why the hell didn't they do this more often?
Yeah, that was an impressive game from Killer Cam. Double dong. He hits a pair of home runs every time he hits homers, it seems. He has 5 home runs of the year. 4 of them have come in 2 games. Mm-hmm. It was his first homer, by the way, since his double dong game, which happened on April 11th. That's over 2 months ago. 147 at-bats between the game yesterday and the game back on April 11th.
It's crazy. But, again, we were just talking about this the other day, where the power hasn't been there. It's not that we don't anticipate that at some point in the future it's going to show up, whether it's this year or not. I don't know, but I thought that, it was not an indication of what he was going to be for the rest of his career. But the fact that he goes double dong again, 4 hits, and looks like the guy that continues to just get more comfortable, and with that, his stats improving every single game. I think it was Ben Verlander put it out there, but since May 16th, he's hitting .317 with an .836 OPS. I didn't expect that from the slow start that he got. I thought he was going to be mid, just trying to figure things out. It's been great what he's been able to do lately.
Yeah, he's been really good for a rookie. I mean, he's been really good, period. He's been good, period. Really good for a rookie. If he finishes with these averages the rest of the year, like, how would you define his rookie year? 266 average, he's 748 OPS, a 110 OPS plus, and that's before we even talk about a defense that could flirt with being a Gold Glove.
I'd be extremely pleased. I mean, that's a huge success for the Astros because, again, when we go back to what we were considering might the starting outfield for this team might look like this year if it was Jake and Chaz, I was extremely worried. And the fact that if you get that out of him, especially with the way he started, there's no reason to believe it's only going to get better. But if that's what he does the rest of the year, I think it's a huge success.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring up the whole they could have brought him up later and did the whole thing. I'm not going to bring that up anymore. I'm not going to try to put the toothpaste back in the tube. That ship has sailed. But no, he's I would obviously take that. He's been really, really good. Like the whole, how are you going to replace the Kyle Tucker? How are you going to replace the Bregman? What I think what we're seeing here is that Cam Smith is not really replacing the Kyle Tucker production. He's actually replacing the Jeremy Peña production that we got last year. And Peña is the one that's actually replacing the Kyle Tucker and or Alex Bregman production. So, like, Peña was at this level, like here in the middle. Kyle Tucker was here at this top level. And what Peña has done this offseason is go up to top-level production. Mm-hmm. Cam Smith then replaced Peña's above-average production, and that's what you're getting. Well, that's why you're seeing this result. So it's not like a trade for trade. It's not a right field for right field. It's Peña's going to replace Tucker's production, and then Smith's going to replace the Peña production that was just voided.
And then you could take it a step further and say, and then Paredes, I think he cancels out what Bregman would have done anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Paredes becomes your Bregman because Peña has become your Tucker, and then Cam does what Peña did a year ago, and you're the same baseball team, and with the same results. And again, credit to Dana for not only making the trade with the guys that he got and the decisions that they've made so far. He's pressing all the right buttons for this year. Say what you want about last year, but what they're doing right now, we just talked about the pitching staff too, but it has been the perfect storm of positives and turning negatives into positives this entire season.
No, he's Cam. It's been fun to watch Cam, and then everybody wants to talk about the trade whenever Cam has a double dong game, and I mean the trade's been great. Cam Smith and Isaac Paredes alone are going to outproduce Kyle Tucker. And then, Kyle Tucker's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and you weren't going to re-sign him anyways. And then you have 5 more years of Cam. You have 2 more years of Isaac Paredes, and then whatever Hayden Wesneski gives you. It was a great trade. I loved it at the time, still love it.
But don't you also think the Cubs fans love it too?
I think they'll let's see what happens in the offseason.
Yeah, true. They do have to end up re-signing him, but I think they weren't going to have Cam on their Major League roster this year. Wesneski wasn't the guy that they were going to have, I think, this year.
He would be in their pitching staff, probably maybe not in their rotation.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And then Paredes was a disappointment last year for them, so they weren't too keen on him in terms of especially the fan base and everything. I would say the Cubs are happy that they got Kyle Tucker and whatever they got out of him, and the Astros have to be ecstatic with what they got for him.
I don't think the Cubs will be happy if Tucker's only there for a year.
That's fair, right? Yeah. And that's the truth with any any franchise that goes out of their way giving up a ton to get a guy and then you're not able to re-sign him, then that's on you. You took that risk and you knew what you were getting into when you made the move.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I think about, though, is like, what if the Astros would have done this with all the players that left them? What if they would have done Kyle Tucker, final year, we're going to trade you before you leave for free? What if they did this with Springer? What if they did this with Correa? What if they did this with Bregman?
Cole.
Cole's a little bit different because he was kind of like I thought he was more of a hired gun, like, hey, come help us win. And he was only 2 years of club control. So, like, you trade for Cole, he pitches a year, and then you trade him away. Like, I don't know if you could have done it with Cole.
You wouldn't have won the World Series. But
he never won a World Series.
I was going to say, because they didn't anyway.
No, he never won a World Series.
But at the same time, he was a big reason why they got as far as they did. But you're right. I mean, it was a shorter-term deal where you knew he was basically gone at the end of the year. But if you would have traded him at the deadline, I think it would have hurt the team.
Yeah. But if you do this with every player that left you over the years, like, you have a bunch of different Cam Smiths. Like, you're in a better spot today. Do I think it majorly impacts your winning or losing? I really don't, because you still had the one in 17. Who would have been gone on the 22 World Series? No one. Like, no one would have been gone in 22 that you desperately, like, that was helping that team.
No, I don't think that.
Because no one really left you in free agency.
I think they were already all gone, right?
Cole
was already
Bregman,
gone?
Yeah. Bregman wasn't gone yet, but he still had an extra 2 years. Correa was gone the year before.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Peña year. Altuve was a guy that we're going to commit to long term. Jordan was a guy. I can't remember when they extended Jordan. I think they did Jordan maybe that year. It might have been that year because Click did it. Click signed Jordan, and then Click was fired after the World Series. So Jordan was already signed to an extension before you won the World Series in 2022. There was nobody on that team that left you in free agency after winning the World Series that would have bothered you. So you would still have 2 World Series because you would have won 17, you would have won 22, and your roster would be in a way better spot right now. Like, an alternate reality, I wish that they would have done the Kyle Tucker trade with George Springer, with Carlos Correa, with Alex Bregman.
Yeah, I mean, would you have had the playoff success that you had, regardless of whether you won the World Series
Maybe
or
not.
not? Maybe not, right? Because I think that's the only thing where the detriment would be is that, from the overall golden era of Astros baseball, would you have had the long runs that they had in some of those years, even though they came up short in the World Series? Probably not, just because of the fact that those guys were impactful in all those runs that the team was on. But if the end result is just winning the World Series, you would have had your 2, and you probably would have been a lot closer to starting either another window run or keeping the window open for the foreseeable future.
You'd be in a better spot today, and you're still in a very good spot, but I think you would have a loaded roster. 713-780-ESPN, HRMP listener line. Paredes Bregman is a wash. Same patience at the plate, same pop in the bat, and defense, Bregman is only slightly better based on what we've seen this season from Paredes. I think Bregman's a better baseball player, but I don't think it's that great of a gap. And I'd much rather have Isak on his salary than Bregman on his salary. And then you can also throw in the equation that Bregman could opt out at the end of the year. Isak has at least 2 more years of club control. And then you could also add in the fact that Bregman is currently hurt.
I'm going to say the injury factor is the first thing that came to my mind. And we know that Alex has had injuries. But, yeah, I mean, the salary, the injuries, all of that says that if Paredes even comes close to what Bregman's doing, then it's a huge win for the Astros regardless, because there's no way that the Astros should have even considered, and I'm glad they didn't consider paying him what he got from the Red Sox.
No, that was too much. Hindsight, not trading Correa and Springer were okay moves because they needed those players in the postseason. Bregman definitely should have been traded. See, that's not – I'm not going to argue that they wouldn't have helped you in the postseason. There's no doubt about that. And do you take it temporarily, short-term loss? Yes. Does it help you long-term gain? Yes. We're seeing it currently with the Kyle Tucker trade. Now, Correa's final year, you did not make the World Series. You lost in the ALCS. 2021 was his final year. George Springer's final year was the COVID year in 2020. You lost the ALCS in 7 games. No. Correa went to the World Series, lost to the Braves. Mm-hmm. They lost to the Braves. So, like, those guys in their final year did not win a title. Right. So maybe you don't get to the World Series in 21. Maybe you don't get to the COVID ALCS in 2020, but you're in a much better spot long term, and their final years didn't net a World Series title.
No, that was my point. Like, again, are you trying to win a World Series? If that's your end goal and the only thing that matters, then there's no doubt you make those moves and you just take the results. But from a fan's perspective, you just have to realize that, yeah, the biggest drawback would have been you probably wouldn't have gone as far in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. No, I would agree with that. But would you take that trade?
Yeah,
I would take that trade
absolutely.
every time and twice on
Not
Sundays.
that now you're not even like the Rays, but you're a better version of the Rays because you're reloading with top talent. You're getting multiple players for them, and then you're still keeping the Altuves. You had two plus years of Bregman. You're keeping guys around. You signed Jordan, as you mentioned. That you're better in the current format of whatever your team is from the next couple of years, but you're way better in the future.
Yeah, I like this is something I've always advocated for. And people are like, you're nuts, you're crazy, you're so dumb. And then they do the Kyle Tucker trade, and everybody loves it.
That's why I commended them because they did what they weren't willing to do with anybody in their recent history. They finally did it with Kyle Tucker. And now the fact that you're seeing the rewards of it, it's right to be able to look back and say, well, then why the hell didn't they do this more often?
Mm-hmm.